Hello and welcome. In today's session, we will take a look at SAP EAM, Enterprise Asset Management, which was earlier known as plant maintenance. So it all started with SAP R3, where we had the plant maintenance and the customer service module. The PM module was for maintenance of internal assets, and the customer service module was for the maintenance of customers' assets. And then SAP introduced SAP PLM, which was product lifecycle management, leading on to ALM, which was asset lifecycle management, and then ERP, and finally enterprise asset management. This is a quick overview of all the processes that are covered by EAM, the totality of all the lifecycle phases of an asset. Things like investment planning, project management, vendor selection, project execution, maintenance, external procurement, shutdown, and performance management are all covered under the umbrella of EAM. In this session, we will take a quick look at the top three topics, which is the organizational levels, covering maintenance plants, planning plants, and work centers. Then we will look at technical objects, how you identify them, how you classify them, and then finally a quick look at breakdown maintenance. We will also have a look at a real SAP system and its customizing to see how we work with these three elements. These are the organizational levels important from a PM, plant maintenance, as we will call it now, from a PM perspective. So at the top here you have the general organizational units in logistics. The client is the highest level element of all the org units. It corresponds, for example, to a corporate group that may have several subsidiaries under it, and each subsidiary can be set up as a company code. Each company code has its own financial statement and balance sheet. Within logistics, the plant is one of the most important org units. It usually represents a production unit of a company, but can also represent a storage unit as in materials management. The plant at which the operational systems of a company are installed is called the maintenance plant, as shown here. If the maintenance work is planned at this plant, the maintenance plant is also the maintenance planning plant. So these two entities, maintenance plant and maintenance planning plant, could be the same org unit or could be a different org unit depending on the business processes. Locations. These subdivide a maintenance plant according to spatial criteria like site, building, or coordinates. A maintenance plant can also be subdivided into plant sections based on responsibility for production. The units of capacity in plant maintenance PM are managed as maintenance work centers, and we will take a closer look at this in the next slide. And at the bottom, a maintenance planning plant is the org unit in which maintenance requirements are planned. These requirements can either come from your own plant or from another maintenance plant assigned to this maintenance planning plant. The planners within a maintenance planning plant are defined by maintenance planner groups. In most of the org structures, maintenance measures are planned in the same plant where the maintenance requirements occur. The maintenance orders are executed by workshops from the same plant, and the spare parts are stored in the same plant. So these two entities are usually the same plant. A work center is an org unit where work can be carried out. Examples for work center may be a machine, a group of machines, a person, or a group of persons. In plant maintenance, work centers are used as responsible work centers in the master record of the equipment and functional location, as responsible work center for task lists or for maintenance items, or for order headers and operations of an order. Work centers belong to the master data and provide the capacity required to perform a task. The basic data contains general data such as work center category, description, responsibility, and usage. Also, the work center links provide the connection between the work center and other objects within the SAP system. You can link a work center to the following objects, so things like a cost center, qualification, position, or with people. When we look at the system, we will see how these links are actually maintained and configured. So those were the two org structure elements that we've just discussed. And now we look at technical objects, the first one being a functional location. Functional locations are essentially hierarchically ordered structures that represent a technical system or a building or a part of it. You can structure the functional location according to spatial criteria or technical criteria or functional criteria. Some example of a functional criteria could be polymerization functional location or condensation functional location, etc. The aim of creating a functional location is to structure a technical system or building into units that are relevant for PM. In doing so, the functional locations very often take on the function of the location where individual objects can be installed. In such cases, it is possible to view removal and installation locations both from the point of view of the installation location and also from the point of view of the individual installation or removal object. You typically use functional locations in your implementation if you want to perform maintenance tasks, or if you want to maintain technical data and evaluate it over a long period of time, or if you want the cost of maintenance tasks to be recorded, and if you want to analyze what effects or the usage conditions have on the likelihood of damage to the installed equipment. The next technical object is the equipment, probably one of the most important entities in the PM module. An equipment is a single object that is to be maintained as an autonomous unit. Equipment usually represents single objects, for example a pump, a motor, a boiler, etc., for which maintenance tasks need to be performed and recorded. Equipment can be installed at functional locations and can also be linked with a material, and you should always create an equipment master record for a technical object if you need to manage individual data for that object, and if you want to record breakdown, planned or preventive maintenance tasks, and if you want to evaluate the technical data for this object over a long period of time and record the costs of maintenance tasks. This is some of the data that you record in the equipment master record. The general data include things like the class, the object type, reference data, manufacturer data, and so on. Location data typically has the address and the exact location where the equipment is sited. The org data has things like account assignment, responsibility, etc. The structure data could have things like structure indicator, higher level functional location, etc. Additional data or links in the master record for the equipment can also be activated as tab pages or called up using push buttons. You can use the time-based data to monitor a piece of equipment dynamically. That is, track changes to the equipment over a specific period of time. If your system is customized accordingly, it automatically creates a new time segment whenever certain changes are made in the master record. The time segment describes the equipment usage. We now look at bills of material. Bills of material are used for different purposes across the SAP landscape. So for example, you may have a costing bill of material, you may have a production bill of material, and you may have a design bill of material. Instead of defining one single bills of material across the whole of the SAP landscape, what has been done is that each area has their own bills of material. For example, for production, there is a completely separate bills of material. For costing, there is a separate one, and same for PM. And the bills of material are uniquely defined per area by their usage. So you have usage typically going in from 1 to 5, and depending on the enhancement pack you're on, it might even go up to 7. The bill of material for plant maintenance differs from the other BOMs in that it only contains items relevant to plant maintenance. The maintenance bill of material has three main functions: structuring of the object from a maintenance point of view, spare part planning in the order. So if a technical object uses a bill of material, you can use this simply during the planning or a maintenance order to plan spare parts, and spare parts planning in the task list. Spare parts can be planned in the task list based on a bill of material. There are three important categories of the maintenance bill of material. You may have the material BOM, the equipment BOM, or the functional location BOM. A BOM is essentially a bill of material. So material BOMs are always used in plant maintenance if a number of similarly constructed objects have to be maintained. The aim is not to create a bill of material for each technical object, but to create just one bill of material and then assign this to the technical objects. This avoids the use of redundant bills of material. A material BOM is a bill of material that is first created for a material independently of a technical object. To do this, you first need to create a material and then create a material BOM for this material. So before we move on to the next topic, let us quickly have a look at the system and see how these objects that we've discussed actually work. So now I log on to my system. I'm user 35 here, and we'll take a look at some of the things that we've discussed. So I go to logistics, and within that I have plant maintenance, and this is where I do most of my transactions. So the first thing that we discussed was setting up a plant and a work center. To set up a work center for a plant, I go to the plant maintenance section, maintenance processing here, environment, and this is where I see my work centers. So if I want to display a work center, I have to first choose a plant, and this is when I get the list of all the plants that exist in the system. Now you'll notice that I cannot create a new plant here. I can create a new work center but not a new plant. So let's first go back and try to create a new plant. This is done in customizing. So if you're familiar with SAP, you know the transaction to go to customizing is SPR0, and I go to reference IMG, and this is my customizing menu. So if I go to the logistics area, I see all these logistics related modules, and this is where I do my plant maintenance and customer service customizing. Now you will not find the plant here either, and that is because the plant is an entity used across the enterprise, across several different areas, and hence it is defined under the enterprise structure. which is right here, definition, logistics general, and this is where I define a new plant. So let me just create a new plant. This plant is already been defined for plant maintenance, so all I will do is I will just create a new one by copying this. This is the standard process used for creating new objects in SAP. You just copy an existing one and then change as you see fit. So I'll create a plant called ZZ11, and this is my test plant. So won't change anything else here. Enter. This is the address. I will not change the address, just let it be the same address. And then I got a customizing request. Basically, if I want to take this new plant to my test system or my production system, this is done in SAP using customizing. The objects are locked under a request, and then this request is released and transported to the next system. I can create my own request, or I can simply use an existing one. I get the message that my data was saved, as you can see below here. So now I've created a new plant called ZZ11. I go back to plant maintenance. This is plant maintenance under enterprise structure and not plant maintenance that we saw earlier. So the only thing I can do in this plant maintenance is maintain the maintenance planning plant. A prerequisite is that the maintenance planning plants must first have been created as normal plants, which we've just done. And if all the plants in the organization structure are also maintenance planning plants, then you must include each of these plants as a maintenance planning plant here. So for our purpose, we shall do so, and let's see if we can find our ZZ11 here. We cannot find it here. ZZ11 is missing. That's because we haven't created it. So we now need to create it. Let's just do the same thing again. We'll copy an existing plant, 1000, and then simply put our new plant here. So hopefully we'll get the list in the drop down. Let me just scroll down, make this a bit smaller so that you can see it on the screen. And now you can see it, and I see my ZZ11. If I had not created it in the preceding step, I would not find it here and I would not be able to create my planning plant. I get the message, successfully copied. I save. And I again get my customizing request. I use an existing one. And here's now I've created a new planning plant. I can give it a description as well. So now we go back and try to create a work center against this new plant. I will simply open a new session, and you can open a new session /O, and this is my original screen. So now we go to plant maintenance, maintenance processing, environment, work centers, and IR01 is the transaction. If you want to find out what the transaction is, you can simply go here. Let me just move this down. This is the icon, and you can see that transaction IR01 is here. So now I should get my plant, and for that plant ZZ11 I will create a work center. Currently none of these are valid, so I'll create a new one. I will simply call the work center ZZ11 as well. The category is plant maintenance. I can also copy from an existing work center and plant combination to ease data entry, but in this case I'm just creating it fresh. So person responsible, there is no value maintained. I can enter some text. So this is my test work center, and simply save it. Now this says you need to fill in this mandatory field. This is not maintained, so we'll just do that quickly. So the system will guide me. This is a customizing setting. So it says no value selected, maintain entries. I just continue without specifying a project, and I select my first option here. It takes me to the place in customizing where I can define the employee responsible. So what we'll do is we will simply take a few entries from here and copy them. Put in our plant number ZZ11 for each of these. And number of entries copied is 4. So I just save this. Again, customizing a request. I just go back. And now if I do the drop down, I will get some entries. And I just save. So I get the message, work center is successfully created. So this is how you create a plant, and then you create work centers under a plant as part of your implementation. Now we will look at a few technical objects. So management of technical objects. Let's look at functional locations first. So let's try to create a functional location. What I see is a screen like this. Essentially, this is my coding template, and these are my hierarchy levels. As we discussed, the functional location can be set up as a hierarchy. The coding template is used to control which characters may be used for identification. So letters, numbers, or both. So here the X means it can be alphanumeric, the A is alpha, and N is number numeric. And it also controls how these characters are grouped together. So 4, 3, 2, 2. The hierarchy levels are used to define which level ends at which character and how many hierarchy levels the structure may contain. The functional location can be identified using a maximum of 40 characters, which is the maximum length of the coding template. So instead of creating one, let's look at an existing functional location and see some of the information we find in there. So against my user ID, I've got B02 functional location. And when I press enter, I get different sets of information. So this is my maintenance plant. This is my company code, my cost center. And here I can find my cost center manager by double clicking on this. And the planning plant and the planning group, etc. I can also display my function location using my structure function, and this is the graphical representation of how this functional location looks like. If I expand whole, I get the complete hierarchical structure for this functional location 11B02. I can also go to levels higher than this one, which would be 11. So if I click on levels above, go to 11B, and finally to 11, wherein I get the message that the uppermost structure level has been reached. So now right from top to bottom, I can see all the details of my functional location. If I click on this one, the valve set 1, I can see the relevant details, things like the maintenance plant, the location, the address, the cost centers, etc. And on the structure tab, we have something called the structure indicator. The structure indicator sets the default structure and labeling options for a functional location. This enables you to draw conclusions about the position of the functional location in the hierarchy from its label itself. In the same way, newly created functional locations are automatically arranged in their correct position in an existing hierarchy. Now we will look at our next technical object, which is the equipment. So let's quickly have a look at an equipment. We have an existing one, TEQ-11. So this is what it looks like. You have the object type, authorization, various details about manufacturer, the maintenance plant, and the cost center and the company code. So let's create our own equipment and try to assign it to a functional location. So I will create equipment general, create one TEZ underscore 11. Let's call it test 11. And I have to now enter the different fields here, some of which are mandatory. So I will enter the minimum number of fields that I require. Maintenance plans 1000. This tick box indicates that this field is mandatory. So I pull up the drop down here and let me just enter the first one. Go to organization, cost center 4110 as per standard IDIS cost center, and let me try to save it. The system will tell me if I've missed out any mandatory fields. I haven't. So this is my new equipment TEZ11 test 11. Let me just go to display and see whether I can go back to it. Yes, the status as I see is available. So now we will install this newly created equipment onto a functional location and thereby to a clarification plant. So go into this under change mode. You see this equipment is currently not assigned to any functional location. I click the change equipment installation location and give this reference and hit save. So now this equipment has been changed and has been linked to my functional location as 00B01, which is a pump station. And if you notice, the status has changed from available to installed once I've assigned it to a functional location which represents the plant. So now if I go back to this functional location, I should see my equipment assigned to it as well. So I quickly go back. This is my functional location. And if I go to structure, Scroll down, I see that my equipment is assigned right here. Now we have a quick look at BOMs, bills of material. So plant maintenance, management of technical objects, and bills of material. And as we discussed earlier, you have three different types of BOMs: functional location BOM, equipment BOM, and material BOM. So let us go to material BOM and try to create one. Press enter and I get a warning message saying BOM is relevant for plant maintenance. Yes, that's fine. I've got the BOM usage number 4 here. And as we discussed, there are multiple BOM usages possible depending on which area of SAP you're working in. You can also define a universal BOM which is valid for across most of the areas. I press enter and I get another message. Now alternative 2 is added to BOM, and this is because this material already has a BOM. BOM already exists and the system will create a different version of it, but we don't really want that. Let us go to BOM display and try to see what we find. So this is my material and this is the bills of material in the BOM. So let us try to assign the equipment that we've created to this material BOM. So I go back to my equipment and I go to change mode. I go to structure. This construction type field here is what represents the grouping for my equipment. So if I press F1, by the way, is you can click F1 on any SAP field and it will show you what that field means and how it is intended to be used. So I group my newly created equipment under this BOM and then I save. Equipment's changed, so successfully saved. I can also try to do an equipment BOM. So let's see what happens when I try to create one. So I've just changed the plant to the plant that we've created, ZZ11, and this is my equipment. If I try to create it, I should get a warning message, because what's happened is that I have allocated this to plant 1000 for the purpose of planning while creating this equipment, and then the system is saying, are you sure you want to do that? No, I do not want to do that. And so I will put in the right plant and press enter. And this is the screen wherein I can list the components under this equipment BOM. A typical example would be a plant has many components and subcomponents, so it might have a pump, might have a pressure valve, all that can be put in here. And then I just save. So that was a quick look at the BOMs, and now we will move on to our last topic for the day. We will now have a quick look at breakdown maintenance and see how the system supports this. Essentially, this kind of maintenance is a shortened version of the corrective maintenance processing, and breakdown maintenance has only 3 steps. Step 1 is the starting point and involves the creation of a maintenance order for damage or for a malfunction. This order is not planned but is immediately released for processing. Any order papers required are also printed. Step 2 is the execution phase and comprises the removal of spare parts from stock and the actual execution of the order. The last step, step 3, is the completion phase, and here the actual time required is confirmed. technical confirmations are also entered to record the repair and condition of the technical system, and the order is settled in controlling. Breakdown maintenance involves the creation and release of the maintenance order in one work step after a malfunction has been reported. Depending on the organization, this step is performed by the maintenance supervisor or the central maintenance planner. The malfunction is corrected by a maintenance work center named in the order, and after the malfunction has been corrected, the order is confirmed by the person performing the task. The order is then completed by either the supervisor or by the maintenance planner. So that in a nutshell is the end-to-end process for breakdown maintenance. Let us now look at how the system supports it. So now we go back to the system. So plant maintenance, maintenance processing, and we want to create an order, a maintenance order without a maintenance notification. So we go to order and we create one. The order type is PM01. Priority is very high, and the equipment is one we've used before, PEQ11. So I press enter, and I see that the dates have automatically been populated based on the priority. So if I were to change the priority and press enter, the dates still don't change because whatever is the initial priority as set on the screen is what drives the default, and the priority isn't evaluated again. The other pieces of information are defaulted automatically. So the planner group, the work center, and the activity type, they're all defaulted. The activity type comes from customizing for this order type, and these two pieces of details come from the equipment master. So if we look at the status at this time, we will see that it's created, material availability not checked, and dates are not updated. Now if I choose this item and put this order in process without printing, I'll see my status would change. So let's just go back to this order in change mode and see that my status has changed now, and it's showing released along with the other sub statuses. So let us now look at some customizing behind the order that we just created. So I go to SPRO. This time I go down to plant maintenance and customer service, maintenance and service processing, and here I find most of the customizings that I need to set up for my service orders. So I go to the settings for order types, and this is where I actually configure my order. So if you recall, we had used the order type PM01. If the list is very large, you can simply go to the exact order type if you know it. So this is where I configure it, given the settlement profile, the budget profile, and other details. Let's try to see where we set the default activity type for an order. So here I have my maintenance activity types. By the way, sometimes the options you have and the menus is too complex to go through one by one, and you can use this easy find search field, and this one indicates the next item in case the system returns more than one result. So let me try to search for activity, and the system will show me all the places in IMG where activity can be configured and will give me the area as well. So this is just a tip. So going back to our activity types, you have it here, maintenance activity type, and assign valid maintenance activity type to the order. So my order was PM01, and here is where my activity types are defined. So if you look at this, PM01 has multiple options for an activity type, and if you go back to the order itself, let's just go back to the order we created and check which activity type had been defaulted. This was number 103. So how do you get 103 from this list? And the answer is in the next menu item, which is the default values. So against my order PM01, I should find the default as 103, which is right here. So that was a quick look at customizing behind the order types. We hope you enjoyed this session and see you again soon.